This is one of my public service video, as today it is my pleasure, nay, honor, to bring the thought of a sensible woman. Are you awake yet? Why is it always the pretty ones? Oh, and though it doesn't matter for this video, but she's also a flat earther. Who would have thunked? As I don't know her name, I'll just call her Pretty Lady. I'll start with a completely unrelated story because, well, it's a fun story. We're talking about a time long ago when barbers used to perform minor surgeries. Our story begins with one such barber. But he just wasn't any other barber. Oh no, he was the best. In fact, he was so good, everyone would go to him rather than real surgeons. Losing all their businesses, all the surgeons came up with a plan together. They simply offered to teach the barber all they knew. Our hero was super smart. He went through all the lessons like a duck taking into water, and soon he knew quite a lot. Then something strange happened. He wasn't as good as he was used to be. The reckless abandonments were gone, replaced with the knowledge of ramification. That's all to the story.
Asking me how I'm confident that this is a plandemic, scamdemic, how I'm not scared or concerned about taking my children out or going outside without a mask. So I live pretty much my whole life evidence and factual based. I look at the research, I follow the money trail, I look at how credible that person is that's doing the study, and then I think logically about it.
Obviously, I don't want to play the full video. Here is my summary. Link to original video will be in description in case you would like to confirm that I did not take anything out of context. So, Pretty Lady mentioned the death tally for swine flu in 2010, followed by 2015 flu outbreak. Next was in 2018. She narrates all the death count and rightfully observes that there were no masks, lockdown, social distancing, and so on. From these informations, Pretty Lady thinks she is thinking logically to jump to the conclusion that this is a plandemic/scamdemic and it is all a ruse for a vaccine, and thus she does not wear mask, her children do not follow social distancing and such. Oh, I love people who bases their life on evidence, fact, research, logic, and so on. They are my kind of people. Where do you even begin with such sensible people? Anything I might say is so damn obvious that I would be insulting their intelligence by assuming they don't know it. Then again, if they did, how did they come to such conclusion? Oranges are oranges and apples are apples. Yes, they are both fruit, I'll give you that. Similarly, you can have diseases that share some common symptoms. However, that similarity doesn't make them the same. For example, if one is coughing up blood, it can be chest infection, bronchitis, lung cancer, TB, and more. If you guess that all those different diseases would have different treatment, well, you would be correct. First thing to understand is COVID-19 is not flu. On one of my earlier video, I think I took almost 15 minutes with detailed explanations on why that is the case. A card should be popping up and link would be in description. Now, Pretty Lady, if you follow any kind of logic, this is the time where you should concede. Apples to oranges, you see? I can leave it at that, but what's the fun in that? Now, what were the words she used? Evidence, fact, and logic? Okay. We have this thing, a biological preparation that provides active acquired immunity to a particular infectious disease. It was Edward Jenner who in 1796 gave us this gift. And yes, it is a gift. We call it vaccine. Isolation of influenza virus in 1933 very quickly led to the development of the first generation of vaccines. So, the vaccine has been around for a while. Hopefully, as we both value evidence and fact, we should be agreeing so far. Time for a math puzzle with multiple questions. Initially, I thought I would make it a simple example, but then I thought it wouldn't be challenging enough for Pretty Lady. So, we have a flat earther who has a magical power, and when she talks to most people, she has a 50% conversion rate. So, in average, she can talk to 2 people and turn one of them into believing in flat earth. But this magical power does not work on the warlocks. Let's call them globers. Flat earther walks into a bar with 100 people. Question 1. What is the minimum number of globers required to ensure that majority can never be flat earther? Question 2. What is the minimum number of globers required to ensure that everyone is converted? These are 2 really challenging questions. This is herd immunity. I'm pretty sure I covered it thoroughly in one of my other COVID-related video. If I had a particular strand of flu recently, I most probably have the antibody or immune to it. Or maybe I have taken the flu shot. In either case, I'm now like those globers. I cannot be infected by those strands, neither can I give it to other people. It is true for every influenza season. The more people immune to it, those people protect a shield around those who are vulnerable. Which means, if you have the flu and come and visit me, then I go and talk to my mom. Well, if I can't pass it, my mom is safe. But not when you talk to her. Which brings us to COVID-19. It is a new virus. We still don't have a vaccine. We don't even know for sure how long the antibody lasts in our body. And we have reports of people contracting the disease multiple times. So the whole shield we have against flu is no longer applicable. Those of us who cares, guess what we do? We try to take ourselves out of the equation. It doesn't stop the virus, but by maintaining social distance, we just reduce the chance of getting infected or passing it on. Pretty Lady, it's not that hard to understand, is it?
Back in February, we saw all those horrific videos, the live videos coming from Wuhan of people dropping dead in the streets, foaming at the mouth, having seizures, people dying whilst driving their cars, loads of dead bodies in Italy, the fake pictures that we saw.
Are there fake videos and pictures of the pandemic? Well, I'm sure there are. And what does that logically prove? The cynic in me thinks that it's more likely that your group creating these fake images to convince you rather than the rest of the world. For a moment, let's just assume it's all a big hoax. This is bigger than the fake moon landing or fake 9/11. Note to self, remember to put a sarcasm warning on the screen. Just imagine the magnitude for this to work. You need to have almost every government around the world to play along. I'm guessing you're American from your channel About page, and most probably think it's something to do with you guys. I guess everything should rotate around US of A. Now, you might find it hard to believe. There are some countries around the world that do not like you guys. There are different types of government, secular, non-secular, but for some hidden agenda, well, not so hidden according to you, decides to agree to play along. On top of that, one also has to control all the independent sources. Yes, at the current climate where everything is political, existence of fake videos and photos mean some of the sources are tainted. So if we want to know the truth, we need to consider the totality of the evidence and weigh it accordingly to its scientific rigor. This approach is called a systematic review. This is something, pretty lady, you might want to look at. Death rates? Oh well, numbers and the value of human life. Some might think even 1 is a high number, and to some, 20,000 is not high enough for the concessions we all have to make. To each his own or her own, I guess. There are many variables on what disease you might catch, from genetics to environment to diet and much more. Once you have caught it, well, unfortunately, the next part is all based on where you are and what you can afford. I had a horrible experience last year where I had to take a friend to a clinic in Philippines. It was one night and I got a bill of £400. 400 freaking pounds for a night. Oh, God bless NHS. All this to allude to the simple facts. There is a new virus. We don't have any cure or vaccine yet. It has spread all over the world. It affects vulnerable people more. If you're lucky enough or either have the money or live in a developed country, you're in a much better position to survive than others. Do I need to go on? The fact she gives, 16th of July, only 23,146 deaths, with a death rate of 0.0024%. The time of recording, 6th of September, total deaths so far 41,551. So in about 1 month and a half, it is about 17,000 new deaths. At 2020, UK population is near about 68 million. Now, if I'm being an absolute a-hole, I would divide the death with total and then time it by 100 to get a rate. If I would do that, I would get 0.061%. For frick's sake, did she pull those numbers out of her ass? 23,146 is 0.0024% of 9.6 million. Trust me, I did this calculation multiple times as I couldn't believe myself. What is this magic number 9.6 million? I have no clue. It is not the number of infected either. Now, if I wasn't being an a-hole, I would say a better number is to compare the death to infected. It's always important to understand what is the number we are looking at. Total cases in UK so far is 347,000, and out of those, 41,551 have died. Now, can one argue that the infection rate would be higher if we hadn't followed the protocol? Can one argue that if we did it sooner, we would have seen less death? If I plug in the infected value, I get a rate of 11.97%. So almost 12 people in every 100 that got infected died. I would call that a shocking number. But wait, that value is not correct either. Suppose I had the virus, but because of my health and such, I didn't go to the hospital, but did manage to recover. Now my data is not in the system, whereas if my symptoms were worse, I would have gone to the hospital and might have not survived. Does my original Barber story making more sense now? Systematic review. Well, I will go with observed case fatality ratio. Simply because I think even if there were a zombie outbreak, some hard to reach places like Tibet or Alaska would be relatively safer, so should not account for the country's general area. Mexico is winning this case with a rate of 10.7%. followed by Spain at 5.9%. I'll mention some other countries. Now, I do have a specific reasons for choosing these following countries. I'll let you find the link if you want to. Bolivia, 4.5%. Indonesia, 4.2%. Romania at 4.1%. US at 3%. Iraq at 2.9%. India at 1.7%. Philippines at 1.6%. So, pretty lady, what are the logical conclusions we can draw from that? Or am I being too subtle?
What is going on? And the only logical explanation for that is the vaccine.
This is my utter speculation, and that is being a gamer. If my end goal was to get everyone vaccinated, well, personally, I would have started after having the vaccine, so I could introduce it at the most appropriate time. As every day passes, more and more people turns against the lockdown. And though you might think it helps with the cause, but I would argue it's quite the opposite. As a gamer, I would say the perfect time to launch the vaccine would have been April, May. Now, would you agree that the longer they take, the harder it would become? Or do you think people would be so despondent that they would agree to anything? Come to think of it, I do see some validity in that, but would still argue you don't need them to be that despondent, unless that is also a goal.
So no, I'm not scared of COVID. No, I'm not scared of going out without a mask. No, my children won't be socially distancing from other children. No, we won't stop seeing friends and family. We're going to live our life as normal.
Now, can I just say something? Suppose you had the virus, and then your kids had the virus, and then my little one playing with them got the virus, and then she gave it to my mum. Guess how I would feel about you, or what I want upon you. Well, I can't say it without violating every single YouTube policy. When you spew flat earth nonsense, it's a good laugh, and mostly harmless. But when you spew such vile, while masquerading as a logical thinker, who obviously doesn't understand what any of those words really means, or doesn't understand how to follow it. We all start as a Berber. We can choose to learn. The more we learn, the more we know. We can choose to divide the number of deaths with total population and call it a day. Or we can choose to use number of infected and then call it a day. Or we can be those fools who keep saying there are many additional variables to consider and such. And we rely on data, especially when it comes to a novel item. Yeah, you know, general stupid people.
And it's just getting embarrassing now.
You said it, sister. I guess this is the end, and I do mean it in more than one sense. If you have managed to stick so far, well, thank you. And I do hope you have enjoyed this content. In which case, can I please ask you to like and maybe comment to feed YouTube algorithm? Being a very small channel with only 2-digit subscriber count, where half of them are my friend, well, if you can subscribe, not only will you know of my new content, which are mostly similar, but you will also help my channel grow, and it would be truly appreciated. Have a safe day. Signing off.